Welcome, everyone, to episode 1 of our new podcast, When No Data Found. And contrary to what the fancy graphics may have led you to believe, there have been 0 beverages consumed in the making of this podcast.
Yet.
Just hey, my
coffee.
name's Jeff Smith.
And I'm Scott Spindolini.
And the guy you hear in the background, Scott Spindolini. And this is a new thing we're doing. We want to talk about all things of interest to Oracle database developers. And so I'm going to introduce him and have some fun, and he's going to have some fun introducing me. Let's see, I've known Scott Spindolini for about 8 years. He is a former product manager for Application Express or Apex at Oracle. Since that time, one of the first, since that time, he's made a name for himself in, of course, the Application Express space, but also security. He spent lots and lots of time building lots and lots of successful apps for lots of people, including for us at Oracle. Scott is kind of the brains and genius behind some of the apps the Oracle ACE program uses to track all of the cool things they're doing to help educate the community. And Scott and I just run into each other at conferences 3 or 4 times a year and thought, let's take that friendship on the road and talk about things that are of interest to us that might be of interest to you.
Mm-hmm. And since we both have kids that watch YouTube all the time, they might actually get to see us, since we'll be on YouTube at some point or one of those video blogging channels. But yeah, I'm excited to do this too. Been bouncing this idea around my head for a while. I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm out driving and walking and whatnot, and there's really not one for this, and I couldn't find one for this, so we're going to make one for this and have some fun with it. So I met Jeff way back, probably 8 or 9 years ago, introduced to me by the Apex team as the new SQL developer product manager, a job that I could have had. So you're welcome for me not taking that job way back when.
Dodge the bullet.
Yep, back when it was called Project Raptor. So yeah, they brought Jeff over from Quest, where the purveyors of Toad, and I was like, so why, I guess, is he working here? It makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, didn't make sense, but we've bumped into each other and exchanged stories and comments and advice, and quite often even see each other at airports as he transits through Dulles on his way up to Cleveland or down to wherever, Orlando even. So yeah, he's been a really, really good advocate of social media posts, blog posts, lots of different instructional videos. Quite often I'll run across his tips, definitely on Twitter or on the internet, as I'm looking to find out how to do something with SQL Developer or any of the tools that the database group puts out. So I'm excited to do this. I think our goal here obviously is to get sort of the inside view from him, the outsider's view from me, and hopefully it'll be interesting for everybody watching to learn a little bit something about the database tools that Oracle and third parties provide. I don't think we're going to limit it to just Oracle. There's another tool out there we think is useful. We'll talk about it.
Absolutely. So I think, Scott, you nailed it on the head recently when you said, just a few minutes ago, when you said we're doing this just so our kids can respect us as YouTubers and also fathers.
When we get more subscribers than they have, that's when I think it's successful.
We could live stream us playing some video games in the backtrack.
That's true. Let me get Fortnite.
But in addition to being fathers and excellent husbands, although don't ask our wives about that, or maybe even our children, just a little bit more on our backgrounds, maybe what might help folks. So you mentioned I came from a company called Quest. So I spent 10 years at that small company working on another database tool, and I helped with support. I did product management there, and I ended my career there doing pre-sales. So I became like the dog and the pony, doing lots of sales calls and doing presentations and showing customers how to get the best bang for their buck. And that's kind of where I honed my shtick, I guess. The tips and tricks stuff, in 90 seconds showing you 4 things that can help you save 90 minutes later, that kind of thing. So I kind of had a 10-year head start when my boss now asked me to come over to Oracle and work with SQL Developer. And I loved the idea of doing SQL Developer stuff because it was completely free, so I didn't have to worry about selling anything anymore. And it was with Oracle, which had been my dream job, my dream employer ever since I got first exposed to Oracle as a college student. So I jumped on that chance. And for about this past 7 years or 8 years, gosh, I can't remember now because time is relative, I guess. It feels like 7 months in some days. But I've been their chief storyteller for SQL Developer, also a few other tools. I bother a lot of people online, or I try to help them, but I come across as bothersome probably. So there's a lot of Jeff Smiths out there. I took up the persona of that Jeff Smith because it fit my sarcastic personality. And also I couldn't think of anything better, so I just went with that. So if you Google Jeff Smith Oracle, you'll find my blog, which is thatjeffsmith.com. If I'm Twitter, is thatjeffsmith, all of those good things. And my email address is a little bit more complicated than that, but if you just want to ping me on Twitter, that's the best way to find me. So these are the products I manage: SQL Developer Data Modeler, Oracle SQL CL, which is a new command line interface. It kind of replaces SQL Plus, and Oracle REST Data Services, which I recently started in the last couple of years working with, which kind of brings Scott and I a little closer together in terms of intersection between Apex and the Oracle space.
You know you did those out of order, right?
Yeah, I know. And then for fun, these are the things I like to do. I'm quite active on Untapped. I'm from West Virginia, and that's another reason Scott and I like to give each other heck, because we're former Big East rivals.
We don't even
Syracuse unfortunately helped kill the Big East when they jumped to the ACC, the traitors. Now I'm in the Big 12.
Sinking ship, my friend. Sinking ship. We were the first ones out. We saw the mice running. We just decided to follow them, and hey.
Yeah, it's okay. I still hate you guys. I still hate Virginia Tech and Virginia too.
We could agree on hating Virginia Tech. That's fair.
Yeah, and then I try to do the exercise stuff to counteract the beer drinking stuff, but that hasn't been working for me too well lately. So that's my official bio stuff. And by the way, we're not going to do this ever again. This is just for episode 1.
Right. Right. Yeah. All right, so I have to do a slide too, since Jeff did a slide. As he mentioned, I do bleed Syracuse Orange. Graduated there in '96 with a degree in television management. A lot of people kind of stunned to hear that, and lots of my old former Oracle colleagues called it TV and VCR repair. Speaking of Oracle, I was there before Jeff was there, from '96 to 2005 or thereabouts. I was one of the first product managers of Apex and did about 3.5, 4 years with the Apex team. That's where I really got my start with Apex, is back before it was even a product. In roughly 2002, it was called HTMLDB. It was just an idea. We did a lot of work to get customers excited about it. Had a hard time getting people to even understand what it did, let alone say, well, wait a minute, it's not a product, but it's free, and you want me to use it, but what if Oracle starts charging for it? Or what if Oracle cancels it? And those were tough questions back then. Today, they're a lot easier to answer. So we like to joke that Mr. Peak's job is easy because of the job that I did back in the early days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So started my first company, Sumner Technologies, in '05, where we focused on Apex. We rebranded that to Sumneva for a short while, and then that got purchased by a company called Enkatech. Enkatech was about 100 or so strong when they got purchased in 2014 by Accenture. I was at Accenture for roughly a year. We'll call it a year, I think is safe to say. After that stint, I jumped back out and started Sumner version 2.0 in 2014 or so, 2015. And just recently, Viscosity acquired Sumner. So now I'm back on track from being a small company to a mid-sized company. We're about 45 or 50 strong right now. I am an Oracle ACE Director, which Jeff kind of alluded to, an app that we built. This position allows us to work with the product managers, which in my case is my old team, so I'd be talking to them anyway. But it gives us that pipeline into Oracle, right? So if we want to convey our opinions, we've got direct channels into the product management team. Quite often I'll hook up customers of mine or just people who find me on Twitter or find me on the blogosphere or wherever with the product management team to also get them involved. So it's a great program. lets us do a lot of presentations around the country, et cetera. Couple books, Pro Apex 4, that's old. I wrote a chapter in that one years ago. Apex Security is newer. It still needs a little bit of an update, but it's still pretty current. Most of the stuff in there is still applicable to today. There's my email address for work, and then there's my Twitter handle. So that's
Scott's
my fancy.
Gonna put my email address in the slides and post, right?
Yes, I'm going to use my TV and VCR degree to make this look all pretty.
Awesome. So I just learned some cool, interesting things about you, Scott.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that was a great slide. It took Accenture a year to figure out that you were included in that acquisition and to fix the glitch.
It was weird how they made me work from my basement for the last 3 months of my employment. I wasn't sure why, but I did. I went downstairs and did my work there with my stapler.
And also, every time I see you, you're working for a new company. So, but I think at Viscosity, they got themselves a winner. So I'm looking forward to.
I'm excited about it. It's a really good opportunity. Yeah. It's actually taken me out to Texas. It looks really neat behind me, but I moved the 3 or 4 drawers of files that I have to get shredded just out of view of the camera. But it's been crazy getting ready to move out to Austin and work with the local teams out there.
So I look forward to the Texas-themed podcasts. Cattle horns, the lariats, the hats.
Mother-in-law already bought us cowboy hats.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll wear one next.
You'll have to invest in shiplap, I guess. So this episode, we're going to do a little bit of news. Actually, every episode we're going to do a little bit of news. Yep. Maybe react to some things we've seen online of interest, share some funny stories, and also do some practical, like what's going on in the community, and maybe even share tips and tricks as we go. So Scott and I just recently came back from a conference in Orlando, Florida called Kscope, which is a shortened word for kaleidoscope, which no one could spell, so they changed it to Kscope. But that's from the Oracle Development Tools User Group, which also got rebranded to ODTUG. So that's the great thing about the Oracle community. There's no shortage of acronyms and abbreviations and 3-letter code words that you have to figure out before you can follow along. But I call it probably the nicest and best bang for your buck conference for developers across the entire Oracle sphere. Well, not the whole sphere, but a large portion of it, at least in the United States. So it's like 1,400 people when we were there for 5-6 days.
Yep.
So I thought in this first episode,
I think the first 4 days I didn't go outside.
Yeah.
It rained evidently, it lightninged, it thundered. It could have snowed. I wouldn't have known.
My kids thought I was going to be at Harry Potter World or Disney World the whole time. I think I made it to the park one night.
That's one more than me.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just conference hotel time.
Mm-hmm.
But we figured we'd do episode 1, a recap of what happened at this conference, maybe do a quick preview of what's going on for conferences going forward. And my team, which is, when I say my team, it includes the Apex group, the entire development tools team under Mike Hitchwa, hosted a symposium on Sunday. So these weirdos at this conference wanted to spend 6-7 hours locked in a room with us, just with the Oracle staff, and doing like a full brainwash matrix kind of download to folks, but it's kind of nice. So our group did a TED style talk. So instead of doing 6 1-hour presentations, we did 24 10 to 15 minute talks, which were really, really fun. So we got to introduce a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. And then we also had a bunch of talks and ran hands-on labs throughout the week. But probably the biggest newsworthy type thing we did, and I'm going to pause again to share my screen. We had just debuted a brand new technology for our cloud customers. And I'm the product manager for SQL Developer. So we built a thing called SQL Developer Web, Now, if you don't know what SQL Developer is, it's a Java desktop technology. It's for an Oracle database user, whether they're a developer or a DBA or just one of those query people. It's been around for, gosh, a long time, and we have about 5 million users around the world. So most people, if they're in an Oracle database shop, they've at least seen it if they've not used it themselves. What we wanted to do for folks that sign up for a database service and eventually even an infrastructure service and want to install their own database on it is give them the ability to interact with that database completely in their browser. So we've taken our Oracle REST data services technology and built a HTML5 JavaScript app around that. And right directly in your browser, you can connect to your database, run queries, interact with tables, create diagrams, do real-time SQL monitoring, and that sort of thing. So that's been probably the biggest newsworthy thing that's happened to us up until this past week. So we give you a little basic dashboard so you can see what's going on in your database, who's doing what. This is kind of like our Facebook timeline take. Over here, you can see who's in your database, and down below, you can see what the most expensive sessions. I don't really have a lot of weights because I haven't been doing them for the last hour, except shooting the, you know what, with Scott. Or open a worksheet.
And your queries are so fast all the time, it wouldn't take up much resources
Well,
on the server, right?
no, my resources are Select Star from Beer, so
Right.
yeah.
There's several thousand rows there.
So Select Star from, we support that on day one. So really the goal here is I don't have to spend a lot of time explaining to someone brand new to Oracle maybe how to download a client, install Java, connect into our firewalls, get your access control list configured, open up ports, all of that good stuff. I sign up for a service, you get your dashboard link. Inside of that, there's a link that says SQL Developer, and you're good to go.
Now, from a security point of view, right, you've got to enable this, right? This isn't just something that...
It's not on out of the box, no.
Right, okay, good.
You make it really easy to get it turned on out of the box. But this is what my team's been working on a good bit for like the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. So this is fully available in production, Oracle Public Cloud. The good news is we put it cloud first, not cloud only. So we're working right now to make this available for any Oracle customer out there that is going to be running Oracle REST data services, which is a free tech. So all the good things you know about the desktop, we try to carry over here. You know, so the insight, the parser, errors, it's got SQL history. You can export to CSV. And we even built things like management screens. And for those folks out there that are doing real stuff, like maybe Select Star from really big tables, interfaces to things like real-time SQL monitoring.
Now this replaces the DB console for the cloud customers, right?
So for those of you that already had database as a service accounts, there was a feature in there called the DBMon.
Right.
Just like short for DB Monitor. Again, we just love these abbreviations like crazy. So that was deprecated and replaced with this, which has every single feature DBMon had, but added stuff. Actually added a whole stuff, including the SQL Dev worksheet bit, and then also this data modeler component. By the way, I'm running this out of my desktop, not out of the cloud, but so you could still do all of your management features of the database itself, like create a new pluggable, change its state, monitor uploads of PDBs that you're cloning from on-prem. But you'd have these new screens now. So there's an OS screen. You can see what processes are running. But I think the big win things are day 0, minute 0, second 1. Start creating tables, start running queries, start providing, instant value to your end users.
Yep.
So,
and it's just another way to get to the data, right? I mean, if you're going to be building PL/SQL heavy applications, this isn't the tool for you. But if you need to pop in
Yeah.
and look at
Yeah.
something, right? And again, this is all HTML5, I would assume. This would
Yes.
work on a
Oracle Jet.
tablet. Yeah, it's all jet based. So this would work on a phone. It wouldn't be the best experience, but again, if you need to get into prod, urgently and you're out on the road, you're at dinner, you're somewhere that you're just not able to get to your laptop quickly, this gives you that interface, much like, the SQL Workshop on Oracle Apex does.
So
So,
yeah, we're not looking to replace what you already enjoy from your desktop, whether it's the command line or what I call the fat tools like SQL Developer.
right.
This is all powered, happens everything over HTTPS. So like you said, I'm in my iPad, I'm on my iPhone, my tablet. Eventually what we want to have in SQL developers, the ability to generate reports that you can then easily consume in your tablet, almost like an Apex app. But for ad hoc type stuff, the DBA might want to check on, because I think typing queries on an iPad would always suck, no
Yeah.
matter how
Oh, yeah.
good
Yeah,
you make SQL
there's no
Developer.
easy way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is all free. It's all included. It's in the cloud today, and the plan is to make it on-prem. So a lot of my week was spent at Kscope, kind of showing that off, teaching people how it works. So we've got YouTube videos. I've got blog posts. I'm sure Scott in post will add links to those because he's super awesome.
TV, VCR repair. So if I want to use it today, right? Obviously, I could go, buy a cloud instance. Could I use that in the trial, the free cloud trial?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So if I just go get an OCI trial, the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure
Yeah.
trial, the new stuff, I can kick the tires on it. We actually configured it for a client the other day. They're pretty happy with it. It's a neat little interface, and it gets them what they need, and it replaces that DB monitor thing. I remember on my Oracle Cloud instance, the first thing I did was remove Glassfish because I didn't like it, and there went my DB monitor because for some reason that wouldn't run with Apache Tomcat. But I learned
Yeah.
my lesson early on not to mess with that. But
Yeah. So, I mean, we're excited, but now that it's real, we get to start, handling customers and fixing bugs and all that fun stuff. The good news at cloud is, we get to submit updates on a monthly basis if we can handle it.
right.
And I'll talk a little bit later. I mean, we already do quarterly updates for on-prem products. Cloud, it's even more, crazy hectic. But
So when are we going to get this on-prem? I know Oracle's always super detailed when timeline questions are asked. At least the Apex team is.
are you going to make me pull out my legal disclaimer slide?
Maybe.
No, I would just say sooner rather than later.
Okay.
So the big milestone was getting it out to cloud first, letting those customers test it, have a go at it. We have
Work out the
internal
bugs,
people
yeah.
using it just on-prem internally. So there are big, huge opportunity in sales databases that those DBAs don't want to give direct access to the database to people like me because they don't trust me. But they're more than happy to give us a link that opens up a browser that they could run ad hoc queries through.
Right.
So that's another benefit to the tool is if you need a layer of separation between the humans and the data, and you don't like them having a stateful JDBC or OCI connection in there, having that mid-tier somehow makes people feel a little better about that. But then you can also tie that into things like your internal single sign-on authentication schemes, LDAP things, which you've got a ton of experience with.
Oh, cool. You can do that. Okay.
Yeah,
That's good to know.
Yeah, right now it's set up out of the box for database authentication, but it's possible to set up those styles too. It's a little bit interesting to try to map what someone's LDAP user, how that would actually map necessarily to a user schema in the database, and then what privs they would assign, especially if it's like a shared, like these 25 people get to go to the database as this user. How does that work? So
Right. Man, if only Oracle had some sort of web-based application tool that would do that type of stuff.
I know.
And do it like quickly, like if you were like an express service. maybe there's a market for that.
So tell us about some exciting stuff you ran into at Kscope, or memorable moments, or
Kscope's tough. It's a lot of meetings. It's a lot of, in my case, meeting the new team and just coming up with things that we want to achieve internally that I'm not going to bore anybody with. As far as sessions, I saw a couple. Usually I only see like two or three. It's kind of sad. I'll deliver my two or three and then you're just busy. So I saw an interesting one on security of all things, 10 things you could do to secure your Apex app. And Simon Hunt was the presenter, and he came up to me after I did my security talk. He's like, I'm so happy you didn't say anything that I'm going to say. There was only a little bit of overlay between the two. And I was like, hey, that's fine. The thing with Kscope is... What's that?
I was just going to say, I don't know if you noticed this or not. It seemed to me a huge uptick in security talks this year.
There were, we accepted a couple more. I know that there was at least like 5 or 6 themed like that in the Apex track. It's a big deal. It's never been a bigger deal. And, it's something that most people want to do, but they don't know how to do it, or they don't have the time to do it, which is a bad excuse, or they don't have the funding to do it, which is a worse excuse. Apex is probably one of the more secure platforms because you've got to go out of your way to make something insecure, but there's lots of different things you could do that you think are beneficial that takes you off the path that all of a sudden, your user wanted some HTML injected into your report and you can't get that to work. So one of the sessions that I did shows how a common mistake would be to unescape that report. So now the HTML looks great and I just have an address that, line 1 here, line 2 here, but you just opened up a cross-site scripting risk. And I think the thing that people have to understand about either SQL injection or cross-site scripting, there's usually not like a level of severity involved. Either there's a hole and I could do whatever I want, or there's not a hole. It tends to be kind of binary with these threats. You're only limited by your creativity and your experience. So that's why it's really important, is because a simple thing like that, even though it seems incidental and it doesn't seem like it's that disrupting, could allow me to potentially build components in your application without you knowing, right? So on the extreme level, I could actually have you just run a report and all of a sudden I've got a password logger enabled on your application that anytime anybody logs in, their password sent off to a web service and I can collect them all. So
you should write a book or make a product or offer a service of helping people with their security stuff.
All these great ideas, right? When am I going to have the time?
So I love going to conferences because we get to see all these talks. Actually, we get to do a bunch of talks and then try to force ourselves into a couple of other talks when we have the free time. But we get to run into users who are living this day in and day out. And at the conference, that 1/10 of 1%, 1/100th of 1% of actual real people out there. So that's the other thing we want to do with this podcast, is kind of bring the conference type level material to folks that can't actually make it on site to these things.
Right. And just, like I said, I think it'd be great to do a security themed talk. We could do a new features of SQL CL talk. I mean, there's so many different opportunities here. We do have a Twitter account. It is @WhenNoDataFound. So once this goes live, which will be shortly after we're done, we'll have that account go live. Interact with us, right? And that's one of the things that we haven't really talked too much about the conference side. I like the smaller ones better. And even Kscope I consider smaller.
Kscope's a smaller one.
Yeah, even though it's 1,500 people, half the people do EPM and Hyperion and stuff that we just don't understand.
300 or 400 people are there to do database in Apex.
Yeah, so it is
pretty small.
So you can get a group of 45, 50 people in your session and then interact with them the rest of the week. It gives you, as an attendee, a really unique experience, because you may see our stuff and follow our blogs and follow our tweets. Now you could actually sit down with us and ask questions. And everybody there is more than willing to help. And I love some of the sessions where someone asks a question, you get 3 completely different yet correct answers. And people who do this stuff day in and day out go, oh, wow, 2 of those answers I would have never thought of. So it's a great way to exchange ideas. So the more interactive we can get on the Twitter handles and on the internets and all that kind of stuff, the better off.
Yeah.
I think this will be too.
And you can find Scott and I in person for an entire day in Raleigh, September, for the East Coast Oracle Conference, which is even smaller than Kscope. That's about 300 people.
Yep.
And what are we talking about? You roped me in for something. I've gave you an abstract, but I forget already.
So we're doing a Apex themed day, and the theme that I came up with is Apex Foundations. What that means is we're going to have 5 sessions where we talk about kind of just the core foundation technologies that you could use with Apex. So you're doing SQL Dev, right? Whether you know it or not. That's the abstract you sent me.
Sweet.
Stephen Feuerstein is going to talk about PL SQL in the scope of Apex. So one of the most renowned PL SQL experts will be sharing his experiences with the Dev Gym, which is his Apex-based tool that he does all the quizzes on. I believe I'm talking something security, probably a blend of what I've done at Kscope and whatnot. Francis Mignot is going to talk about Apex in the cloud and how to position Apex on different cloud offerings and the benefits and the drawbacks of each one. And then Karen Cannell is going to round out the day and talk about the grid and that the new reporting feature released in Apex 5.1, but enhanced even further in 18.1. So
that's a pretty cheap day. It comes with lunch. And it's in Raleigh, which is very easy. I mean, if you're in DC, Virginia, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, either of the Carolinas, I mean, it's a few hours drive or a really easy flight into RDU. And the conference site, it's a nice location too.
It's going to be brand new this year, right? Because last year it was not brand new. They were renovating the hotel.
Completely got renovated.
So I'm excited to see that because last year it was a great conference. It was a little, I didn't find it challenging, but they just kind of shuffled us around a little bit more so.
Well, we can always find the hotel bar. That's never.
Yes, which was actually a conference room.
It was a conference. We made it a bar. We found the conference room and had them turn it into a bar.
Yeah, do what we got to do to make it happen. But yeah, it's a great conference. And those presenters, maybe save you and me, those are some of the top people out there, right? So you're going to get really good content.
Oh, yeah.
And
we found a way to get in early, and they're stuck with this. But everyone else there is really good.
You live there. We'd feel bad if we didn't include you. Was I supposed to say that?
Kind of awkward.
Yeah.
No, I know. I wrote that rule into the... Yeah, so that's like 2 days, but the third day optional that Scott was talking about.
Right.
So a big opportunity to meet people like Stephen Feuerstein in person and, bring your tough business questions and let smart people like Scott figure them out for you for free instead of paying him for consulting. I mean, not quite that, but
what a great idea.
Close. What a great idea. It'll be a loss leader, Scott. We're getting them in.
That's right.
We'll find the profit later. What more do we want to say about conferences? I think you should go, but of course they cost money. I think if you have training budget in your org, it's worth considering trying to get that siphoned, to get yourself on site, to get disconnected, to be away from your code for a few hours or even a day has a benefit in and of itself. Seeing how other people out there are suffering from the same problems as you is good. And that's just good for any domain, not just Oracle.
It's true. Every time I go to a training class, people always start out and say, "Oh, we're the worst. You're gonna just laugh at how we do stuff." And after 5 minutes, I'm like, "No, you guys are fine.
You're not the worst.
You're doing it just like most everybody else." And I think that's one of the greatest things. Like you could watch videos, you could download presentations, you could do all that stuff, and it's a good idea to do that, but you don't get the same interactive experience, right? You don't get to listen to the questions that are asked. And quite often you don't have the best questions. Other people have questions that are similar or even better than the question you were thinking of. So just listening to how the presenter answers them and learning about what people are doing and you'll learn stuff just from the questions that just don't always make it to the presentations or the recorded stuff. And then the accessibility, like you said, we're all from out of town, so we're all staying there. Even if you're local,
we
hang out with us. Yeah, we can't go anywhere. Ask questions. That's what we're there for. We'll talk shop until roughly 8:30, 9 o'clock. give or take.
And then we switch over to beers and answer even more questions.
With better answers, too.
A nice trick of the trade, something we picked up on a long time ago, is if you submit a talk to a conference and get accepted, it's free. You're just on your own dime for room and board. Although there are some conferences that give you stipends. And then the ACE program is nice that Oracle has. Oftentimes will reimburse the ACEs for travel to go to conferences and speak. So next year, actually, look this fall, the abstracts will open up for all the big conferences next year. Consider submitting one. I'm on an abstract committee. I know Scott is. We're always looking for new, fresh faces.
Yeah.
But, if you're going to submit an abstract, how about some tips, Scott?
Start small, right? I've talked to many people about this. Like, how do I get to present at Kscope? That shouldn't be your first go, right? You've just got to be that spectacular of a person who, has built up the skills and the knowledge base and just decides you want to present. I encourage people, because what we do, right, we'll see an abstract that looks interesting from a name that we don't recognize. We go to Google like everybody else does, and we type in the name, and we go to look at their LinkedIn, and we go to look at their profile. And if I don't see any blogs or anything on Twitter or any evidence that person has started to make some sort of community contribution, that to me is kind of one of the things I look for. And it's a little troubling if
I'm not even really looking for conference speaking experience.
Right.
Like if they had a really active Twitter feed or a blog post, that tells me they have a voice. And then they've just got to pick up the mechanics of actually doing a talk on stage, which is, of course, intimidating for a lot of people. But
but that's why start small. See if you could do a local user group. A lot of them will just do tech nights, right? It's not even a formal conference. They're looking for people to come in and present at their regular meetings. So you might have 10 people or 15 people, and you might only be able to get away with doing a half-hour session, right? So you don't have to prep
or
the
10
full
minutes
hour.
Before they start.
Or even a lightning talk, right? But
meetups are nice too.
Yep, meetups are easy too. If you don't have a meetup, form a meetup. That's really easy to do. I know OD Tug will actually reimburse you for meetups. So if you wanted to create the meetup.com account, which I believe is like $90 a year, they'll reimburse certain people. I'm not sure what the qualifications are. They're pretty minimal to create those meetups. And then you could have an Oracle Tools meetup, an Apex meetup, a SQL Dev meetup. The other tips that I give people is you don't want to be too specific, but you also don't want to be too broad, right? A conference topic should kind of be somewhere in between. Security, for instance, right? I'm not going to talk about one specific type of SQL injection attack for an hour. I'm also not going to talk about just security in general for an hour. Both of those are going to come off as being either way too focused and you run out of content, or so broad that I didn't really learn anything because you spent 45 minutes setting the stage and then 15 minutes trying to get through, 3 days worth of content. Somewhere in the middle.
I like coming away from a talk and having one or two things I need to do right away.
Yeah. Yep. So the one that I did, Hacking Apex, talked about SQL injection and cross-site scripting, showed not just the attack, but also gave tips as to what to look for in your application to see if you have these vulnerabilities. You have some actionable stuff. You could walk out of there and hopefully, learn something and take that and use it back at your office. And that's the other thing too, make it applicable. I mean, if those who've been on the committees with me, I kind of sound like the old guy a lot where there's 5 Internet of Things presentations. I'm like, all right, that's good and that sounds fun and I'm positive it's cool. But if I just spent money to go to a conference and all I could come back with is, I could go to Radio Shack or wherever, Fry's and buy a sensor, hook it up and have an Apex chart built because that sensor sensed stuff. Okay, that's cool, but it doesn't necessarily apply. I'm all for that new emerging technology.
Dude, I've got a table that stores every time my kids open up the refrigerator door.
Right. That's great, but awesome. Make that practical. Make it more practical, right? Like, if you're going to do that type of stuff, I think that's where you need the case study. I remember there was one, I'm not sure if we accepted it or not, but it was an IoT presentation in a factory on the shop floor where they installed all these IoT sensors to monitor the manufacturing process. That's huge, and that makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
cool that
hard.
someone's willing to share that too, because that sounds like a, competitive advantage. Here's how we,
Sure,
doing little
sure.
things type of thing.
But that to me is more interesting because now, again, you're still niche, right? If you're not in manufacturing, it's not interesting in some sense. But at least it has that level of applicability, right? You're going to cater to somebody. And maybe if you're not manufacturing, you could go and say, you know what, we do, a lot of workflows where we're routing things. Maybe it's files. Maybe you're a law firm where everything's, printed. Maybe we could kind of retrofit that and meet some of our criteria here.
Well, that's an advantage that real people have over us vendor types. I'm talking about theoreticals and possibilities and not really selling, but trying to just get people to realize what the technology has to offer to them. You as a practitioner can say, this is what we did last week to save, 34 gigawatts in our power bill type stuff. And that has a lot of value to people.
Yep.
So my little timer's going off, Scott. We've spent way too much time talking about conferences, and it's time to start saying goodbye. Well, half our job in life is conferences, right?
It is, but it's something I enjoy, and I think the other thing that it's hard to find in an abstract is the passion, and I think that's where when I look up somebody or when I look up someone's Twitter feed or blog, you could see the passion evidenced in tweets or blog posts or something of that nature, video tutorials that just show, hey, I not only do this and get paid, I enjoy it and I want to share it. And I think that's something that the two of us have too, right? We don't just get out there and do this. I mean, let's be honest, as an independent previously, it takes about a week to prep an hour talk. When all's said and done, there's a lot of moving parts you've got to put together. From the idea,
you've done a bunch of them and you do it. Yeah.
From the editing, from the demo to the slides, and then you do it and you realize, oh wow, this didn't work. I need to go back and modify it. We don't get paid for that, right? That's truly, we like doing it. We like teaching. We like getting people excited about the technology.
Which is great about this podcast. We did about 4 minutes of prep for this 45-minute introductory inaugural episode.
Yep, and I'll sit back, or you'll sit back while I use my TV and VCR degree to
I know.
Spruce
you
it
will
up
artificially inject the excitement and emotion that you were just saying I brought to the table.
All these new filters, I can't wait to try.
So we have our homework for everyone listening. Obviously, they need to follow the When No Data Found Twitter account.
Yep, at When No Data Found.
At When No Data Found. They need to get ready to watch episode 2, which we want to cut soon and have out, and will be more maybe news focused or general tech focused. Mm-hmm. And then what else do they need to do? Do we have a tip jar they can send us money for beers, or they just
should? Yeah, we could do a Patreon or something like that.
What do they say? Smash that subscribe button, share.
Yeah, if you like this video or subscribe. Eventually we could move this to Twitch, and then people could actually. Just real time send us money.
Oh wow, yeah. Can they take the money away?
I don't know, probably.
We need to make sure they can't fine us, because I think we might end up in the hole.
7 dirty words, right?
Yeah. 7 dirty words.
We had a class about that. We actually talked about that and had to go through some of the origins of the regulations that came because of that skit.
Nice.
Yep.
All right. Well, from everyone here at No Data Found, thanks for your time, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.